During the war years, the government did everything they could to reduce the amount of food that we were importing by increasing the amount of food that UK farms were producing. Now, one of the problems that they faced was that a lot of food could be wasted on the farms before it ever got to market because of pests and vermin. And wood pigeons were amongst those pests that ate their way through large parts of British crops, particularly grain crops. So farmers were encouraged to have these little critters shot, and one shoot could take out hundreds and hundreds of these birds. Now, you didn't want to waste these birds. This is game and it has meat on the breasts. And what we're going to do today is have a go at turning this into wartime pigeon sausages. We've got our pigeon breasts there, and we're going to add into it some sausage meat. Now, if you were a member of a pig club, or you kept a pig in your back garden, or you're on a farm where you could keep a couple of pigs, then that was great. You had a supply of pork meat. Otherwise, you would have had to go to the butcher for sausage meat, and it would have been very limited in supply. Now, the other thing about the pork sausage meat is that that's going to give a bit of fat to these sausages as well. Now, the other ingredients we're going to use are some cooking apples. These apples came from another food swap that we did recently, and we've got onions. During the Second World War, onions were in short supply. They were worth their weight in gold, and a huge part of the onion crop was grown simply on allotments. And one final addition to this recipe is this. This is rowan jelly. Now, rowan jelly is really good with game, and I made this about 3 years ago, and it's been sitting in my fridge ever since, so it's now going to find a new home in the pigeon sausages. Minced up the pigeon breasts. I'd weighed them already, so we had 650 grams, and this will go into a large mixing bowl. "500 grams of sausage meat, that goes into the bowl as well. Now, the point about wartime sausages is that it was often the case that the meat content would vary considerably, and in many times people referred to wartime sausages as being toast because there was more breadcrumbs in them than meat. And indeed, when I was listing the ingredients earlier, I forgot to mention that breadcrumbs go into this as well. But we're going to add in 500 grams of sausage meat to our 650 grams of pigeon meat. Next up, we have 3 apples, cooking apples, and 2 onions. 200 grams of breadcrumbs. Now, in the modern world, unbelievably, people actually buy breadcrumbs from the supermarket. You don't need to do that. You just need to dry some bread out and then put it through your liquidizer, and it comes out as breadcrumbs. Why waste your money on buying it? So we're going to add this in, and I've got to say the amount of breadcrumbs would have varied throughout the war, and we're adding 200 into this. It may be that people during the war years would have used more, possibly at times with a good supply of pigeon breasts, that may have used less, but nevertheless we're going to add 200 grams into the mix. Then we're going to add in just a splattering of black pepper. This may or may not have been added in during the war, depending on how people were able to get their hands on that stuff. And finally, this was used extensively during the war for all sorts of, to add flavour, simply adding in 1.5 teaspoonfuls of salt, and then we're just going to mix this all together. Well, it's partly mixed up now, so time for the final ingredient, which is the rowan jelly. So we're just going to scoop the whole of this jar into the sausage meat mix. All now thoroughly mixed, and we're going to leave this to stand overnight so that the flavours can really blend in together. Well, the sausage meat has been standing overnight, and what we're going to do now is we're going to sample a small bit like that. We're going to fry it and sample it to make sure we're happy with the flavour and texture. So here's the little bit of meat that's been frying for a few minutes. I've not sampled it yet, but here goes. Actually, that is much better than I expected. Yeah, alright, pleased with that. So we don't have to alter any of the ingredients now, we don't have to add anything more to it. So these are now ready to be, the meat's now ready to go into the sausage skins. What I would say though is that during the war period, the chances of you having sausage skins were probably quite remote. So you probably would have had sausages without sausage skins, but we're going to take advantage of being in the 21st century and put the sausage meat into skins. So, these are the sausages I've made. Not as good as the sausages I used to do years ago, because I'm a bit out of practice with sausage making. Anyway, we've left some of the sausage meat to be made into burgers. Now, the point about this is that pigeon is a pest, but in the wartime years they found a use for it, making it into, or using the breast meat to make into all sorts of things, and sausages was one of them, and it's much better than it being thrown out. So effectively, a waste product turned into useful meat and a useful food.